That's the sound of the man working on the chain gang.
Can you hear me say it?
Keep it right there. Yeah. Come on. Sweet. Sing for me.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Swaggy Vets Podcast. I'm your host, BigPenn. I got my co-host and my best friend with me, First Swaggy Veteran. What's up, my man?
What's going on, BigPenn? What's going on, Swaggy Vets, all our friends and family? How y'all doing out there?
All right, we got some housekeeping. Daytona, 6th through the 8th. Bike Week down in Daytona. Swaggy Vets will be there the 6th through the 8th. So if you want to come out and hang out with the Swaggy Vet crew, hit us up on social media. It'll be down in the description. We got the Tough Mudder in Atlanta, Georgia, April 26th. If you want to come out and hang out with the Swaggy Vet crew, hit us up on social media. Then we got the Delta Company reunion, where me and my brother, First Unit, we do our reunion every year. It'll be at Fort Fisher, and that's June 27th, 28th. Then, all the way in September, 5th through the 7th, we got the Warrior Weekend down in Orlando, Florida, with our brother Chance, his Warrior Shield Foundation. We'll be down there hanging out. We'll have something set up, have some swag. We're giving away some swag, so if you want to come down and hang out with us, hit us up. All right. We got an amazing guest today.
Very special guest.
We got an amazing guest. We're going to bring to the stage Major Retired William Richardson.
What's
What's up, my man? How you doing today?
I'm well. How are you gentlemen doing?
Oh, I'm doing good. It's cold.
It is cold. It's cold where I'm at for sure.
Yeah, you're not too far from me, so we feeling the same thing.
Oh yeah.
How's that weather down in Georgia, John?
Man, it's all right for me. For me, it's all right, but everybody else complaining about it. I've been in the trenches.
Been in the trenches taking grenades. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it, Will. I say you grew up in a conservative family and worked in a sawmill, yeah?
Yeah.
What lessons from that influenced your mindset to today? I know sawmills some hard work.
It's one of the worst jobs you'll ever have to do in your life. It's
Okay.
but it's the nature of the beast. This great people you work with, but it's a hard job. It's a tough job, but it has to get done. People need houses. People need furniture. And so it's one of the few industries around here that pays fairly well, and you can do well. But it is hard work, and you're expected to do the work, they'll send you home. So you learn real quick to get tough and do the job.
What kind of stuff do they make in your sawmill?
Well, mostly. So my family owned a really large sawmill in this part of the world over here.
Okay.
And basically we did all hardwood work. So it was all furniture grade timber that they would cut, and then they would, cut it up into different size board feet of lumber. And it was basically furniture grade and flooring grade. So you see a hardwood floor in a high school basketball gym, there's a good chance it come from this part of the world.
Oh, wow.
Or if you see a really high-end oak table somewhere, there's a good chance it come from this part of the world.
Now, you have a very unique story, and I'm really excited to hear about. Can you take us through the Cockroach in a Dream Team Cup story?
Yeah. Okay. So now we're gonna have to be rated G, so I'll have to dumb it down a little bit. But now this is literally the epiphany moment where I was like, "Oh, I've got to do something with myself."
Okay.
So me and my very best friend in the world, we had been to college together, and I played college football, and we just had the best time. And then that was over, so then you had to move on. And so he had moved up to Frankfort, Kentucky. And I had went up there, and he was working in like a little music store up there. And then I was working. I was actually running I was managing a Pizza Hut up there in that area. And anyway, we was just doing what we do. We'd work all day and party all night, just like 20, 22, 23-year-old kids do.
Oh yeah.
And so we're sitting there one night, and we're just partying away. And then you remember the Dream Team cups you got at McDonald's, right? When the Dream Team
Oh
came
yeah,
out,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. The basketball
Well, we
team.
were so poor, we didn't have no money, so we just sat and drink Kool-Aid and watched Three Stooges at night.
Okay.
And we're sitting in the middle of the living room floor like just big old overgrown kids. And I looked down at my cup, and there was a cockroach running around the inside of my cup.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Now
at that
what?
point, I looked at John or Tom, and I said, "I can't do this anymore." And he started laughing, and I said, "I'm joining the Army." And he started laughing even more then. But sure enough, the next day, man, I went and saw the recruiter, and that's what started my path. Believe it or not, was a cockroach in a Dream Team cup.
Now, what did you end up doing when you joined?
Well, initially, so my dad had been in the Navy, and so initially, I was actually going to go to the Navy first,
Okay.
uh, but then it didn't work out, and so then I went ahead and I joined the Army. And so when I went into the Army originally, I had no intentions of making a career out of it. I was going to do 3 years like most people, and then I was going to finish up my college and get me a job teaching and coach football, and just live the American dream. But it ended up not working out that way in the long run.
Sometimes God has a different plan for us.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Now, if you could go back and talk to the young version of yourself before enlisting, what kind of advice would you give them now that you know a lot?
Well, if you were talking about how it would pertain to my military service, the young me would have done the tougher jobs early on. But you never know what you are until you get in that situation.
Mm.
So I went in as a mechanic originally because I knew how to be a mechanic. My dad was a diesel mechanic his whole life. And I was always in the shop or at the mill working with him or whatever. But if I could go back in time, I would definitely be in combat arms of some sort, just from the get-go, from the start.
Okay.
And then I would definitely lean in that direction because it's just a better world for someone like me.
Mm. So, Will, did you find any challenges to finding where you fit into the military?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was always because I was always bigger than most people that was in the military.
Mm.
So I always, that was a consistent challenge, and that never went away. So you do PT twice a day, every day for 20 years, eventually you're like, your body's wore out, but yeah. But I guess the biggest thing was I was always looking for, why are we doing what we do,
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of situations they don't want to tell you that, and they don't have time. I understand they're under pressure to get the job done, but at the same time, when you're inquisitive, you're trying to figure out where your place is and what you'll be good at. So to me, it was always like, I knew I could do more, and I just kept trying to figure out how to get that done. And I think in the end, I think we did okay.
Mm-hmm. How was your leadership when it came to that situation with you?
I had decent leadership all the way through, I think.
That's good.
I mean, everybody runs into a guy that you don't get along with. You know how that is.
Mm-hmm.
You always have a guy that, you rub him the wrong way or he rubs you the wrong way, whatever. But I had some really good leaders and I had some really strong leaders. And like, I always appreciated, like when I was a private originally, I was in 25th ID out at Fort Lewis. And my leadership out there was fantastic. Right. And I that was a great unit. And then when I switched over to become an officer, the best unit I was ever in, and this is the honest to God's truth, was 2nd ACR, 22 ACR out of Fort Polk. It had the best esprit de corps of any unit I was ever in, and it was a tough job because I was just a gold bar lieutenant,
Mm.
and then we ended up going to Iraq that year.
Mm.
But it was probably the best overall unit I was ever actually in.
What was your MOS then?
I was 19 Alpha. I'd originally been a 63 Sierra, which is heavy wheel. I like to call it heavy junk, And then after that, I went in as a 19 Alpha, which is a armor officer. So, but then I ended up in 2nd ACR, which we didn't have any tanks. We just had scout trucks,
Mm.
So had 32 guys and 8 trucks, and we'd run around doing what scouts do.
Was there any leadership lessons that the military taught you that guides you today?
Yeah, I mean, and you guys know this, and anybody that had any time in the military, you have, your personal accountability means everything,
Absolutely.
and then you have to lead from the front. If you're not willing to, like, especially like today in the business I own here, if I'm not willing to go under a house and work, or if I'm not willing to go through that door in Baghdad, John,
Mm-hmm.
then why would I send someone else? Right? So you have to have personal accountability, and you have to lead from the front.
Mm-hmm.
And that don't change when you're in the civilian world, right? When you find your place in the world, you still have to lead that way. That's how things get done. It don't matter if you're own a McDonald's or, you're a shift leader in a factory.
Mm-hmm.
That's how the real world works.
All right.
100%.
100%. So can you tell us about when you went into the surge in 2007?
Yeah, man. So that was interesting. That was my first deployment in civil affairs.
Mm.
And so we went in and, civil affairs, as you know, John, 4-man team. And we got attached to 3rd ID. And we were in, my team was actually, we were based out of Fob Hammer, which is out in the western part of Iraq. But when we all got split up, we got sent to Jisr Diyala, which if you look at a map of Baghdad, it's like probably at the 5 o'clock. And on a map of Baghdad, it's a little kind of like a suburb, basically, of Baghdad, and it was pretty hot at the time, and so we had a lot of challenges there overall, and it was sporting to say the least.
Mm. All right. Well, so when you went to you said you was in Baghdad, right?
Yeah, Jisr Diyala, which is like a suburb of Baghdad.
How
Yeah,
long was that deployment?
it was about 7 months. I think we were there about 7 months, and then we rotated out, and then we had a team backfill us there. But we had a really good deployment. We got a lot of work done. One of the highlights of my career is actually General Petraeus sent an email going, because I had sent my sit reps up where we had done a med op, and we had seen like 450 patients that day, and
Mm.
we'd been working quite a bit. And actually, General Petraeus somehow found that. I guess 3rd ID sent it up, and he blasted that across the theater as this is what we need to be doing.
Mm.
So that might have been my highlight of my deployment, I guess.
Were there any specific challenges you had to overcome during your first deployment?
Oh yeah. Well, if you're talking about as a civil affairs guy, yeah. I mean, when you're on the ground, and I was lucky, I had 2 senior NCOs there with me. I had 2 E7s that knew what they were doing.
Mm.
And then y'all know Freddie De Los Santos. You've heard of Freddie?
Mm-hmm.
Freddie was actually our NCO, and so we had a great team all the way around. I guess the biggest thing was finding our place in 3rd ID, because like a lot of attachments, they don't know what to do with you. They know what you do, but they really don't know how to utilize you. But we had to we showed them our worth and our value, and then all of a sudden we were red hot running every day after that. So we were doing like I said, med ops, and we were working with the city council, this, that, and the other, and so it was constant. It was good work after that.
Mm. So was there any time in your career when you had like a holy crap moment that you can't,
So when you say holy crap moment, is like,
something you can't believe that's happening?
oh, well, yeah, I had a ton of those things. I mean, Baghdad just like, so when I originally went to Baghdad was in 2003 with 2nd ACR. And that was literally the Wild Wild West at that point, John. It was, you couldn't fathom the things you'd see just on any given day. You just see the wildest stuff. And then, in the surge was actually, believe it or not, much more dangerous. But, that had been my second tour at that point. So I kind of was more attuned to what was going on. But I mean, I saw, a lot of bad things happen, and saw a lot of funny things happen. But I guess one of the weirdest things that I ever saw, we had to, civil affairs, you just got 1 truck and 4 guys. So we had to hitch ride whenever we was going anywhere.
Yeah.
And so we had to go out in the Mason province, and I had to hitch a ride with a route clearance team. And I don't know if you've ever run with a route clearance team, but that's one of the most miserable experiences of your life.
They go about 3 miles an hour.
You could, well, see, my back was already jacked up by that point, so I already had a damaged back at that point. And I literally, we'd been in the truck for 6, 7 hours, right, just crawling down the road. And I literally just got out and walked beside the truck. I just couldn't. I was like, I got to give my back a break. And Joel Gonzalez was my senior NCO. He goes, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I got to walk for a minute, bro." And I literally just got out and walked beside the truck. That's how fast the route clearance team moves. And so, we were going, and it's probably about 2:30 in the morning because, they did all the, we were trying to interdict, IED makers and everything. It's probably about 2:30 in the morning, and we're south of District Diala, probably about 8 miles. And at that time, they were putting IEDs in dead animals on the side of the road or anything you think of, right? They just do whatever they could. And there's a big white dog laying right in the middle of the road, John. And so they had the husky, and then they had the buffalo behind the husky, and then the lead engineer's truck. And so I was fourth in line of march. And so we kind of herringboned because we saw this dog, right? And we thought, well, I wonder if that's IED. It's a big dog too, like a big Labrador or something. And they're sitting there on the radios and they're talking, well, what do you want to do? And they said, well, let's just bring up the buffalo with the, it's got the arm on it. And they're like, we'll just grab it with that arm and drag it to the side of the road. And they're like, okay, yeah, that's what we'll do. So they start maneuvering these vehicles. And the one looks like a grader, like a road grader, except it's got the radar built onto it. And the other one's a giant truck with a boom arm on it. And they're sitting there moving these vehicles around them at 2:30 in the morning. And that dog just laid there the whole time. And then that arm comes out and starts to reach down and get that dog. And about that time, that dog woke up. That dog had been laying in that road asleep for 30 minutes while we're sitting there maneuvering, trying to move it. And it starts screaming bloody murder and runs off. And we're just all like, did that just happen? And then everybody just lost their minds for about 10 seconds. We just started laughing. That was one of the funniest things, because we were like waiting for an explosion. And the next thing you see, this dog runs off up the hill and you're like, did that just happen? And we're just literally, it was one of the funniest things. And you're like, literally, did that just happen? It was kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that was one of those, am I seeing what I'm seeing kind of thing? So.
Man, I was in Baghdad in 2003. I was at BIOP, and I remember working a little bit with the 2nd ACR guys. You guys are getting after it out there, man.
Yeah, man. So we were you've heard of Solder City, obviously.
Oh, 100%.
Well, we were at Camp Marlboro. We had taken over that cigarette factory.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, dude, when BIOP got the Burger King, we would literally, John, we would run all the way across that city to get a hamburger.
Yeah.
I mean, what else was you going to do? You had to go out and patrol anyway. So we just patrol all the way across Baghdad, go to BIOP and get a hamburger and come home. Just like we was going to the mall.
Now, Will, you describe, your transition getting out is like really tough. What was the hardest part adapting to civilian life that you don't think people talk about?
Well, I've thought about it a lot, and you have to constantly, if you're not in a constant state of self-reflection, then you'll become stagnant.
Yeah.
And even to this day, I'm constantly looking at myself going, and am I doing what needs to be done? Am I the right kind of guy? And I'm not saying I'm trying to be a perfect person. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. But you have to know yourself, right? So let's say in that situation, you're a combat veteran. You've got multiple deployments. You think you've got the tiger by the tail. You start going out for these job interviews, and all of a sudden they're talking about stuff, and you're like, what? You're like, I don't understand what that means, or I've never heard this term before. And all of a sudden, then they're looking at you going, is this the guy we really want? And then so a lot of that is you have to fall back on either your leadership skills, or you have to be able to prove that, your intelligence level is high enough to learn as you go. Right. Mm-hmm. Because you may be 20 years in the Army, but you might, you're going to be a rookie at whatever you're getting ready to start doing. And you have to realize that. So, and that was probably the most difficult thing was to realize what I was, and then you have to be able to sell yourself, basically.
Yeah, I've seen a lot. So I work with a couple guys that were sergeant majors and stuff. I contract on Fort Campbell, and they said one of the hardest part is like starting from scratch, like you just said. Like you're the lowest guy on the totem pole. You're used to being up here managing X amount of soldiers, and then getting out, going, and you're the lowest guy and not managing anything.
Yeah, and then that's and here's the thing, unless you just have a plan and you've walked that plan to into development before you get out, that's where a lot of people find themselves. Because you'll think, I'm going to go home and I'm just going to sit and I'm going to relax, and then the reality hits you and you're like, well, that's not really going to happen either. Because a truck payment has to be made, or a house payment has to be made, or some kids going to college, and all of a sudden dad's retirement ain't what he thought it was going to be. And then reality hits you. So it's transition is not the easiest phase. But, I was lucky. I had great support all the way around. My family was great. My wife was great. And we always, we worked together. We was always like, we'll make it one way or the other. It won't matter.
Absolutely. So not wanting to take the first job available, how did that balance pressure to stabilize and finding meaningful work for you?
Well, now part of that also is the fact that you have, don't overextend yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right, is the number one issue. Financial issues are the biggest issue you're going to face when you retire. Finding your place in the sun, finding a job, that will happen. But all of a sudden, if you're not ready, these financial issues will arise, and then all of a sudden, maybe you're not going to be where you retire. Maybe you got to live somewhere else. Maybe you're going to have to move across the country, right? So you have to make sure that you're fiscally stable enough to withstand that first year. And I'm not saying you got to have a big pile of money, but you got to be smart, right? And then when you go to look for a job, in my situation, right, there was plenty of jobs out there, and like I was thinking, do I want to be an oil rig manager in West Texas? Probably not. That was one of the jobs that I got offered, and I'm like, I don't think I want to be in West Texas. And now that a landman's on TV, I really don't want to be in West Texas.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it is down there. But and then I looked for jobs that suited my mindset, and I was lucky. I ended up getting on with the railroad. I worked for CSX.
Yeah.
So, and that was another education in and of itself, because that's almost like the military in the respect that it doesn't exist outside of that very narrow corridor, that lifestyle.
Now, did you have to learn a lot going with the railroad, going from what you were doing?
Oh yeah, I mean they sent us to school. I mean we literally went to an academy where you learn to be a railroad guy, right?
Oh, cool.
You go to school and you learn the history. Like literally, you're there 6 months before and then you go out and do OJT training at different locations around on the system. So like in my situation with CSX is the East Coast Railroad, and so they're from Selkirk, New York, all the way to Waycross, Georgia. And wherever the line is where they need bodies is where they'll plug you in eventually. They give you an option of looking, but if they don't need you if they don't need you to be in Savannah, Georgia, you're not going to be in Savannah, Georgia.
So if they want to put you up in New York, get to move up to New York, huh?
Right? Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, but it was a good job, and then one of the things I learned that I had never faced, and was the fact that corporate takeovers are real.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
And when a corporation takes over another corporation and they're looking to raise the stock price, they'll cut people. And if you're the youngest manager on the system in your area, you might, on chopping block whether you did anything wrong or not. They just pat you on the back, hey brother, we don't need you no more, kind of thing. Or they make it untenable.
Yeah. So what kind of resources did you tap into when you got out during your transition, I should say?
Well, I'll be honest, I thought the retirement services that were available at Fort Stewart were fantastic. I think the Army does a really good job. The Army doesn't do great with some things, But as far as like as a retiring soldier, I thought they did a fantastic job helping us transition. And then they had like job fairs that were, constantly there. And then, you would meet people and this, that, and the other. And then, we used a lot of online resources. And then, when I initially went in and started all that, they're like, you need to, set yourself up on like LinkedIn and all these different, websites and stuff that people look for, work. And so all that was very helpful actually, but I was kind of lucky. I got the job with the railroad fairly quickly. I actually was working for the railroad before I retired.
Oh, wow.
So I had so much leave saved up
Yeah.
that I was actually living in Atlanta going to school, and I had to come back to retire.
Oh, wow.
So
What, so you talked about they had a really good transition. What's one thing you think you wish someone told you about transitioning out of the military that you maybe didn't know?
well, one of the things and I think a lot of soldiers think this way because, like most guys, if you've done 20 years or you're a senior guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're looking for that senior position. You're looking for money that's equal to or better than what you were making. Most people are. And then all of a sudden at that same time, you're sitting there going, well, I deserve this. I need to be a manager. I've been a manager for 10 years or 15 years or whatever. And then sometimes that's not the right answer. Sometimes you need to look outside of the box. Sometimes you need to look at what society needs, right? Sometimes society don't need another manager. Sometimes society needs a carpenter or a plumber, and looking, because, one thing that sets you apart, if you're a good soldier and you've lived your career properly, you will be willing to do things that other people are not.
Absolutely.
And you can use that to your advantage, right? When you're transitioning.
I will say this, and people, going to school, getting a degree is good, but these guys out here with these trades are winning right now.
Oh, I absolutely 100% agree with that statement. I can't begin to tell you how fulfilling it has been to own my own business, and that's tough, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not easy, but I didn't want it to be easy anyway. I don't want to be that guy that, I mean, it would be great, I guess, to sit and count your $100,000 every day, but the reality of that is slim to none for most people anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I see it anyway.
So a lot of veterans struggle getting out. What's some advice you think you could give them to maybe help their transition be a lot smoother?
Well, like, I guess, like we talked about, as far as like, know what you're capable of doing and know what you're willing to do.
Yeah.
And then look at what the world has laid out there in front of you, right? Like a lot of guys, for example, I had a NCO of mine. He got out right before we went into Iraq in 2003. And then I'm in the surge in 2007, and I hear a guy holler out, "Hey, Captain Richardson!" Right? And I look across the chow hall, and I see this cat, and it's my guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he had been working for Kellogg Brown and Root that whole time,
Wow.
running the gas station.
Yeah.
And he had took advantage of the situation, and he had got a good job and was making great money, So, I mean, that's, you have to look at every opportunity. But one of the things I think also, and this is probably the hardest part of it all, is you got to know yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I
think what you talked about was very important. Have a plan, because just getting out without a plan is, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, and I think a lot of people struggle. And I think, when you see like, and I hate to say this, but it is true, I believe. When you see a lot of homeless vets and they're in a bad situation, they didn't have a plan. And then situations, once something goes sideways or goes south, sometimes that snowballs. and then you can't stop it. And the next thing you know, you're in an even worse situation than you were in. You know, and then also you can't ever be too proud to ask for help, and make sure like you talk to your people, right? You talk to like you two guys have been friends forever, right? And and so you still talk to each other. And some days I'm sure John don't have a great day, right? And then John can call you and go, "Hey, my day sucked," you know. And then you have to have a support group or a support system around you if it's at all possible.
Yeah, I tell you what, I call them character building days. I have those from time to time.
Oh yeah. Well, we all do. Trust me.
Yeah.
Well, Will, so you went from, Army major, and then I remember you went and worked in the locomotive industry.
Mm-hmm.
You even went as far as even being a janitor before.
Oh, I've done everything, man.
Right.
Well, like right now, I'm the CEO, the COO, the CFO, and the janitor of my business here. Right.
Right. So how
So I'm not. You can't ever be too proud to do the work that needs to be done.
That's right.
Yep.
You're setting yourself up for failure if you think you're better than that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's just a lot of people don't want to hear that, and a lot of people think, well, I've got this education. That's great. Use it. Figure out a way to make it easier. But you still got to do the work. The work has to get done.
That's right.
Yep.
So I know you built yourself up since you've been out the military to be into the business world. Do you think the military kind of helped you with that as well, being an entrepreneur?
Oh, absolutely. It gives you a leg up. There's no doubt, right? Because I sit there and one of my little I got a bunch of sayings. I have 1,000 of them, but one of my sayings is the worst day of my life was all right because I survived it. So when I'm out and I'm having a crap day and things aren't going the way I want it to go, we're having to backtrack and we're losing money and we're losing daylight and this job's going to take 2 more days than I had scheduled. I just think my life's all right. I survived this, So you have to have that mindset about you. And you get that from, being in really crappy situations in the military sometimes, and when you can look around, you're like, well, we made it through another day, right? So we'll be all right. So, and then the military leadership part of it is, as a senior NCO or as an officer, they beat into you that, they don't beat into. Yeah, I guess they do. They kind of beat it into you, don't they, John?
Mm-hmm.
They'll say, "Look, this is your job. You better figure this out, and you better not quit, no matter what. You might want to sit and cry. Well, get it over with. Go and find yourself a place to cry, and then get it over with, and then get back to work." So that's how you have to carry yourself, and that don't stop. I don't think that ever stops. Even when you retire. I think when you're 80 years old, some days you probably have to say, well, if you're going to cry, get it over with and let's keep going. I think that probably happens to old people too.
That's right.
Like that.
You know what? I think when it comes to entrepreneurship, business ownership, there's so much to learn.
Oh yeah. Let me tell you something. One of the greatest assets that I've ever, and I've used it to the fullest. I think I've got 2 months left, just my GI Bill. I've used it. I've absolutely, I have used it to the almost the only reason I got 2 months left, John, is because I can't figure out how to spend 2 months of it. And so when I decided I was going to go into the heating and air conditioning business, I went to school. I mean, I left a job that was paying high 5 figures, right, to make $13 an hour as an apprentice, and I was going to school at night at the local community college, learning, But now I was using my GI Bill. I was being smart. They were cutting me a check every month, right, to use that GI Bill.
Yep.
I was going to school for free. And I was learning, I was getting my education, and plus I was paying the electric bill, paying the light bill, paying the cable bill. And then when I took that pay cut, this helped, to ease that pain.
Mm-hmm.
And so that GI Bill is a lot. That GI Bill is a big deal.
Right. And also, like you said, one big thing about why people I feel are reluctant to be entrepreneurs is the delayed gratification.
Oh yeah.
You know, they
Yeah, you've got to, you'll have to understand that, you know, when you're starting over, you know, you're starting over, right? You know, and I, when I ended up leaving the corporate world, we were living just south of Cincinnati at the time. And so I got a job working in Cincinnati for an HVAC company. And I had to convince them guys to let me work. Because, you know, I wasn't 25, I was 45, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, they're like, can you do this? I'm like, yeah, you know, if I can't, I'll tell you, you know. And so, you know, that's how we did it. And then also, you know, you have to go, if you're going to become like in a trade, for instance, you have to find the guy that's going to give you what you need as far as your education.
Mm.
So I moved a couple of different places from one company to another company, and finally to a third company, till I found the guy that would let me learn all the aspects of the job. Because and it's like anything else. If you're, you know, if let's say you want to be a mason, or let's say you want to be, you know, a chef. But if all you do is cut up carrots for a year, you ain't much of a chef, right? So you got to find a place to work where they will teach you the trade, whatever it is,
Mhm.
you know. So you have to be willing to, you know, say, hey, man, thanks for the opportunity, but I think I'm going to keep moving. And then because you have to, little steps, long vision, John. Little steps, long vision, right?
No, I
So,
definitely agree. I found that, you know, right now I'm a commercial carpenter. So
right.
so everything that you're saying it rings truth in my ears because it's a fast paced industry and nobody has time to teach you.
Yeah, no, and you have to be motivated. Now, that's the big part of this. You have to be self motivated,
Hmm.
right?
Oh yeah.
Like even today, so I've been doing this now 8, 9 years, whatever it is. Even today, I'll sit and I'll get on YouTube and I'll refresh some aspect of HVAC work that I don't do a lot of, right? And I'll look at it and I'm like, okay, yeah, I remember that now, or whatever, or you know, and you know that's all part of it, right?
Hmm.
You have to be able to self motivate, right? And like the worst part for me is like after I've worked all day, I don't really want to come home and do paperwork, you know. So, but then you know when I have a down day, or like today we didn't have a lot going on, or you know where the weather's not good or whatever, you'll have to self motivate to do the little things that have to be done to keep moving forward as a business,
Hmm. Right.
and that's all part of it. And you have to learn that because the guys that don't learn that go out of business.
Right. So when you say self motivate, now I know you're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur. Uh, what are the motivators that keeps you from going back to a traditional job?
I'll tell you what. I mean, actually, me and my wife were just talking about this the other day. Some days you're just like, this is awful. You know, some days you're just like, man, I don't want to do this anymore. But at the same time, I'm thinking, well, I make a really good living, uh, and then I schedule my own days. Right? If I don't want to work a day, or excuse me, if I don't want to work on a Friday, yeah, then I won't. You know, but now you have to weigh all that. All has to be weighed in the balance. You know, because there's a lot of times uh, you'll work 6 days a week or 7 days a week to get work done that needs to be done, you know, and that's just part of it too. But to be able to control your situation and have it in your hands instead of some guy in a corporate office somewhere who don't know you and don't know what's going on, man, that's worth $1 million right there.
Right.
100%.
So currently now you have what, a HVAC?
Yeah, I own a little company here in Burkesville, Kentucky called Carlin Heating and Air.
Mm-hmm.
I have, and we're actually just hired another guy last night. So we're expanding slowly but surely because, like I said, long vision, little steps. Don't ever overextend yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everybody wants to be rich tomorrow, right? And that'd be a blessing and a curse, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to make sure you do it the right way. That's sustainable.
Oh yeah.
Right. And what's the
But it's a constant business.
and what's the saying you say long? What's the saying again?
Uh, Short steps, long vision.
Short step
Mm.
vision. What do you think is? So what would you say is the long vision for your company?
Well, the long vision for me, and I've said this from the get go, and I mean it, is and I've got about 6 or 8 more years to go, and then I'm either going to hand this off or sell this off, and then I'm going to the Virgin Islands,
I know that's.
Hey.
I know that.
and then eventually I'm going to die with my toes in the sand, John.
I know that's right. And some speedos.
I hope not. I wouldn't be above it, but that'd be bad, right?
Well, hey, if you get me a ticket, I'll be right next to you in some speedos. Just don't look my
Hey.
way.
Leopard. He likes leopard.
Enjoy
Yeah, get you some leopard print or some tiger stripes or something.
His motto is you
flamingo.
got to flow with your leopard.
I'm going from flamingo. What? So, Will, what you say? What legacy that you hope to leave?
Well, and this is so cliche, but it's true. So I live in this little bitty town, and when I tell you little bitty, so let's put it this way: the entire county that I live in, not the city, the county, has about 6,500 people. Right. So when you get up in the morning, you go to the bank, you know everybody.
Mm.
When you go to the restaurant, you know everybody. Right. When you go to the hardware store, you know everybody, and they know who you are. Right. So, but you want to we're pretty active in the community. We do a lot of, like, my wife and I, we do a lot of help. We have like a lot of little towns. The downtown area's kind of died off and is in disrepair. The old buildings and stuff. So we try to help out there and help revitalize the community, and then do what we can to help people around the community that are less fortunate. Because I've been blessed in so many ways, or lucky, or whatever you want to call it. I've had a tremendous run as in my adult life, I believe. But if I were to die tomorrow, I'd hope they'd say he's a pretty good guy and he did his best. So that would be my legacy, I suppose.
Well, before
You know.
before they even happen, Will, I tell you, you're a pretty good guy. Hey, you did your best, man. I told you that when you were, retiring and leaving the company.
Oh yeah. We did it. We did do our best, didn't we, John?
Yes, sir, man.
Trying to fix it.
If anything I knew from that company, man, it was like you knew how to put a smile on everybody's face.
Well, yeah. There ain't no reason to frown. We got work to do.
That's right.
So before I got out, I did an apprenticeship with an HVAC company, and for a couple months, putting in the new units, bending the sheet metal,
Yeah.
put up against the wall for the units, and I really liked that kind of stuff until we had a job crawling up under that house, running that duct. Oh man,
Yeah.
that was.
Yeah. And those are the days where you're like, woo, things ain't working the way I want them to, right?
Oh, I was dirty that day.
Oh
I
yeah.
got
Well,
real
no,
dirty.
and that's the part where I tell people, that's where you got to be willing to do what others won't.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, to this day, I'm 54 years old, soon be 55, and I still go up under them houses and crawl around, But and part of it though is because I appreciate the challenge,
Oh yeah.
right? Because at the end of the day, when I've got a house done and these people are happy, and they're like, and I got paid, and my people got paid, and everything's good. I can look back and go, see, it wasn't an impossible task. It just sucked, but we got it through, But and it's really hard for me to get past that, the ability to do what others won't. Right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's one of the most powerful things you can ever have in your life.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter, if you're willing to do the work that others won't do, you can name your price.
That's true. So you've got multiple deployments. You're a field grade officer. What experiences do you find yourself applying to everyday life from the military?
Mm. Well, two things that I carry with me every day. Some of it's great, some of it's not great, I guess. It depends on the situation you're in. I can't stand to be late. It still to this day drives me out of my mind to be late.
That's a
Right.
good quality to have.
Like tonight when we were going to do this, you can ask my wife. I walked around the house for an hour, right? And I'm like, I was making sure that everything was ready, trying to, figure out everything, And I guess the second thing is you have to be absolutely honest. Sometimes brutally honest. Sometimes you can be, pleasantly honest and say, hey, we might want to do it this way. And then sometimes you have to look at the person and go, hey, you're really wrong, and we really need to get this fixed.
Some people don't. It's funny because that's why my kids are. Some people don't. They don't respond to you. Hey, we might want to do it like this. My kids, okay, and then they don't do it. I told you we got to do it this, and that's respond.
Yeah, and so the hardest part there is not the straightforwardness, right? It's the it's the awkwardness that you feel as you're like, look, knothead, this is how it's going to be, right?
Yeah.
And then you're going to have emotions that creep in, but the simple fact is you still have to be able to do that to be successful. And I learned that in the military the hard way a few times.
Yeah, man. I think
I had some bosses that in no uncertain terms let me know.
Yeah, me too. I think we've all been there.
Yeah.
Now, do you have any memorable or like real impactful moments from your service that still resonates with you today, like you changing the soldier's trajectory?
I have one soldier that I'm so proud of her. It's a good little story too. It's kind of I just got to Fort Stewart and I'd taken over HHC, John. This is before I came to Able. And I think she's still in the Army to this day too, right? I think she's an E7 now. You remember Sergeant Williams, John?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I had literally just taken over HHC, and I get a report from the post commander.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because at that time at Fort Lewis, you had a field officer of the day, right? And he had to go to so many places and ask so many questions of the when they were doing their CQ duty. And so at that time, Private Williams was on CQ duty. And the major came in and was talking to him, and he's just being cordial. He don't know them, He's just doing his job. He has to go eat at the chow hall, ask these questions, kind of get the vibe of the post, right? And then he writes up a report, and that gets sent to the CG every morning.
Wow.
And so he saw Private Williams there, and he asked her. He goes, "Do you like the Army?" And she goes, "No, I hate the Army." And he goes, "Really?" She goes, "Yeah." She goes, "I can't wait to get out of the Army, right? I hate this place." And she was that blunt with him because that's what got sent to my desk. And I'm like, holy cow. And this is literally day 2 of my command in HHC. So I went and got my first sergeant and I was like, go find this soldier and bring him over here. And so they went and found her. She worked at the motor pool. They went and got her. She come down there. And I just brought her in and I said, I want to ask you about these answers, right? And she was very forthright with me. She said, I've never had opportunities, this, that. And we had about a 10-minute conversation. And I said, okay. So I went and got my first sergeant. I brought him in. I said, here's what we're going to do. You're going to have so many opportunities, you ain't going to know what to do with yourself. And I said, first sergeant, I said, she's going to go to the board this month, and she's going to go to the board every month till she wins it. I said, she's going to be in here studying every morning, right? Because they had little study groups to try to get soldiers ready for the board anyway. Well, Larry Janis was the sergeant major at that time. And I went and talked to Larry. And they were actually if I'm not mistaken, they were actually getting ready to put her out of the Army. And I had to go talk to Larry. And me and Larry had been friends from the past. And I said, I don't think she's had her fair shake. We're going to see if we can't help this soldier out. And he agreed. And I get an email from her every time she gets promoted.
Nice.
And I know right now she's a sergeant first class, or maybe a master sergeant. So, and that's probably one of my greatest moments, was to help her. And she had children, and she didn't have a big plan for herself moving forward. Had she got out of the Army, and she always sends me email and thanks me for helping her. So I hold that as probably my highest moment.
That's awesome, helping others. And she probably pays it forward and helps other soldiers.
Oh, no, and that was the mandatory. Look here, and I told her, too, I said, you will help other people or I will come get you, you know. And she understood what I meant. And so, you know, I think she probably really does.
Yeah. So what's the best piece of military advice that also applies in civilian life, you think?
Oh, you got to live fearless.
Okay.
Right? And I don't mean crazy. I'm not asking you to jump off a cliff. But don't be afraid of the world that we live in. Too many people live in fear of nothing. You know, if I see they've got, you know, because, you know, what do they put on the TV? You know, oh, you know, this, you know, somebody was shot in Seattle, or somebody was. What's that got to do with me in Burkesville, man? You know, I'm not going to worry about that kind of stuff. I'm going to live my life. You know, and then you have to be fearless in your personal life, and you know, and in your like business world, right? So like in this situation, you have to know, okay, this is not working for me, and then figure it out. But you can't be afraid of change. You have to go with the flow.
Yeah.
You know, what the world gives you is what you're going to get. And if you can't use it, figure out how to use it. But you have to just, you know, if you live in fear your whole life, you ain't never going to get anything accomplished.
Nope. And fear paralyzes your ability to move forward. And, you know, you never know if your fear of applying for this job because you think you don't qualify for it. Well, they might have wanted you.
Yeah. Well, it's, for instance, like I'll give you a very relatable story to fear. So I went to airborne school. I was 38 years old.
Oh man, I applaud you for that. I applaud you for that.
I was 38 years old when I went to airborne school, and then I'd come back from airborne school, and everybody's asking me, said, "What was it like? What was it like?" And I was like, "Well, you want the truth?" I said, your intellect has to override your instinct, because your instinct is don't jump out of the plane at 1,250 feet to go to the ground, right? Because it's natural fear that's in everybody. I'm not doing that. But you have to have the intellectual ability to go, that chute's going to open and I'm going to land, right? Yeah. So, you know, that's, you know, you have to have the intellectual ability to overcome fear and press forward. Sometimes maybe press sideways, but still press.
That's one thing my recruiter told me, because he was airborne, Ranger, all that good stuff. And he told me, listen, when you jump out of the airplane, your parachute will open. And I just had that playing in me. Okay, I'm good to go. Because there's some days you standing on them rocks, Sergeant Airborne, like, if you don't feel like you don't want to jump from a high performance aircraft, you go over here and you quit. And I thought about a couple times at 4:30 in the morning, sucking.
Right? You're like, that sounds all right today, but you would have hated it later.
Absolutely. I would never lived it down for myself. So what do you think that's one military habit that you just cannot shake? I know we talked about being on time and some other stuff. What do you think?
It's funny, and I don't know that it really matters, but it matters to me, is I can't stand to see somebody wear a hat in the building. To this day. Right? And I've talked to my wife about opening a coffee shop. And I told her, I said, I swear to God, if we ever open a coffee shop, there's going to be a big sign on the wall that says, "Gentlemen, remove your hat or you will not be served."
Wow.
It just irritates me to no end, man. And I can't explain it. I just think it's rude now. I guess I was in the Army too long. You know, I just think it's rude now.
Yeah, my son gets mad at me because we're there at the table. I tell them to take their hats off.
Yeah, right? Yeah. You don't eat at the table with your hat on. What's wrong with you? You know?
They think why? I said, you don't ask me why. Just take your doggone hat off.
That's exactly right. But now, I mean, and so that sounds like a little thing, I guess,
Yeah.
and kind of like a, but when you have those values instilled in you, then the other values are there too. You just don't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
That's just one of the things, when we're talking, that's one of the things that sticks out in my mind every day.
Yeah.
Right. But at the same time, you don't lie, you don't cheat, you don't steal. You try to live a good life and be a good person.
100%. Yep.
And the military, they basically instill that in you.
Mm-hmm.
So
Values. Yep.
Most definitely, the Army values is something that's still instilled, and even some of the
yeah.
veterans that I know now. So that's one of the things. I think also fear. One thing about fear is, man, it'll handicap you.
It will if you let
That's
it.
right. I mean, even one time I had to feel like that I was in fear of being successful.
Or failing to be
No,
successful.
I was my fear was it might work.
Oh.
Like this could possibly
What am I
work.
going to do
Now,
now?
see, that's completely
I know,
irrational,
right?
John.
Like you feel
Well, you need to be a
right. Like
superstar.
what's prolonging me from starting this diabolical plan that took me 3 years to start. I didn't figured out, if I got a no here, if I got a closed door here, how to go around, how to go under, and I still haven't started this plan.
Right. And you know what? That's part of it. Unfortunately, you got to figure out, that fear will paralyze you and you won't even realize it's
Mm-hmm.
happened.
That's right. You're thinking about it so long that you're not realizing you haven't even started.
Yeah.
Because
what is it? The paralysis by analysis, right?
Oh, man. Yeah.
right.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
Because I'm sure you had a fear of starting your own company.
oh, you have no idea.
Yeah.
Because like mine was kind of a unique situation. So we were living in Cincinnati, and so which is 160 miles dead south is where we moved to, and to a town I literally knew not one soul.
Wow. That's a leap.
Right. I mean, I knew my family lives 2 counties away, 40 miles from here. And I knew that I had a base to work out of there if I needed to, right? I could get work there. But where we actually moved to, I didn't know a soul. But I knew me, right? And I have the ability to talk to a rock, and have a conversation. So, and I'm not afraid to do it. And I knew that I could come down here and I knew I could do the work. I mean, the work was, I'd trained myself to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a lot of research, right? I did a lot of research though. I looked at, the financial situation in this area, which is somewhat restrictive comparative to cities, right? People here don't make the kind of living they make in other places. So
Yep.
everything had to be addressed as far as, what your expectations were, as far as what this is going to cost and what I'm going to sell my product for. But at the same time, you have to take that leap. And if you fail, you know what? Welcome to the world, buddy. Everybody fails eventually. But if you don't leap, you will never know.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, so what would you say is one of your biggest fears now?
Pardon?
What would you say is one of your biggest fears now?
Oh. Well, stand in line, John. We got another hour, but
That's all right.
honestly, I don't want to. So I'm 54 now, soon be 55 here at the end of the year. I guess I got a little bit of time. I'll be 54 for a minute. I guess honestly, when my day is done, I hope that I enjoyed my life and did the things I wanted to do. Because a lot of times you'll say, "Hey, I'm going to go to Spain, or I'm going to go to England, or I'm going to go to wherever." Right? Just a vacation. How many people that actually go to the vacation they really want to go on? Or do they compromise?
How many people that actually
Right?
plan the vacation they really want to go on?
Right. That's my point, right? And it's just little things like that though, but that's The highlight of your life should not be carrying out the trash every Monday.
Yep.
If that's the highlight of your life, you've not lived well, right? So you should have memories, and you should have, a history to yourself. So that's how I see it. And that's probably my biggest fear.
That's good, Will.
I mean, that's kind of weird, I guess, but that's the truth of the matter. I ain't scared of failing in my business. I'll figure that out. I'll make corrections and we'll keep moving, So, and as far as now I'll tell you another thing too, that like as I get older, my health is a concern. But you beat and banged up and thrashed about for 20 years, but now that's honestly, to be honest with you, that's one of the reasons I chose a physically challenging job. Was to keep myself active and moving, right? So that you can remain viable as long as possible.
That's good. I think one of my biggest fears is to be loved, not to be loved.
Everybody loves
I
you,
don't know,
John.
man. I guess what I be telling myself, you know what?
You got the best smile that ever was, dude.
When I pass away, I want my funeral to be so big that I have a halftime show.
That's all right. Yeah, that'd be all right, right?
I want to
Yeah.
still be affecting people even long after I'm gone.
Yeah. Well, that kind of goes back to my whole thing. When I want him to say he's a good dude, and he tried to be a good guy and everything. It's the same principle, I mean, so who knows? We wish for the best,
That's
right? We wish for the best.
That's it. Will, how could our listeners contact you for your business or just?
Well, so you can find me on Google, Cumberland Heating and Air in Burkesville, Kentucky. Burkesville, right?
Yep.
And then you can find it. We have a Facebook page, Cumberland Heating and Air on Facebook. And then if you're ever in this part of the world, 2 hours from anywhere, you'll find me, right?
Oh,
But no, we actually live on 2 big resort lakes up here. Everybody, this is a big vacation area. I don't know if you've heard of Lake Cumberland or Del Hollow, but those are huge, big resort lakes up here. And so it's actually it's a pretty lively area from about May to October. So it's kind of like Land Between the Lakes, but bigger.
Yeah, I heard people go to Land Between the Lakes a lot. They talk about that around here. It's not too far from us.
No, you're right there in Clarksville.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, Will, any final thoughts you think you can share with our audience, that might inspire or uplift them?
Well, I tell you what, guys, I want to be the first to tell you guys that, and I hope I'm not, but I think this is a tremendous thing you guys are doing for your community and my community, because we're all part of that of a weird little world,
Swaggy Vets.
Yes, we are.
Swaggy Vets, the community.
Right? And then I think we should always try to be grateful for what we have and live where our feet are. The world shows you so much, right? And you believe that, I can live this way or I can live this way. How about you just live the best way you can where you are right now and then make it better as you go along?
There you go.
You got to learn to live where your feet are and appreciate what you have, which is the hardest thing I have to do, because I firmly believe that I can just make it better, or I can get better, or I can have more. And so I fight that fight all the time. I'm always wanting something I can't have. I can't be like you, John, have 6-pack abs, but I want them.
But you know what, Will? Even I might have the muscles, man. You always had the brains.
Well, we try.
I feel
You got to go with what God gave you, right?
Right.
Absolutely.
That's why I'm thankful that you're on the show. That's why I offered you to come, man, because not only was you wise, you was also humble. When you're walking around and, when you meet majors or you meet people with rank, and then when you hear you talk, man, you talk like you was a friend, and you gave advice from like a friendly place.
Right.
Always.
Well, that's, and a lot of that is, and you should always endeavor to be that way, because who wants to listen to a smart ass or someone who's not
That's right.
genuine?
100%.
At that point, they're wasting your time and my time,
That's
right?
right.
So that's the reason that I always try to carry myself that way. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I'm like everybody else. I look at this, I was like, man, that dude is lost in the sauce, boys. I don't know what we're going to do with him. But at the same time, you try to empower him and try to, give him opportunities, or her opportunities, whoever. So,
Right. And just before, I know it's been a while since we served together, but I just want to tell you again, brother, you was an amazing leader, man.
yeah. Well, hey, how close are we to being done, boys?
Well, I mean, we're wrapping it up now.
Okay. Well, I got this picture here. When's the last time you saw this picture right here, John?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Who's this dude right here?
Hey, come on, brother.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Who's
Yeah,
that guy right
there he
there?
is.
That's Cosmo. Is that me?
No, that's you. Here's Cos right there.
Oh man, look at Cosby.
Yeah, right. And there I am, sitting
Oh,
up
that's
top.
crazy. I don't even know what that
Yeah.
picture is.
We were on the 50 cal range. You remember when that 50 cal blew up?
Oh man, that's crazy.
Do
Yes,
you remember
sir.
that?
Hey, who was the
Right beside my head. I thought I was done for.
who are the officers in that picture?
Um, there's Mike Daves,
Yeah,
and there's what's his name?
I'm his Facebook friend. I can't think of it right now.
So actually, I think basically the whole company's here, because there's Dan and Mike. What was his name?
Turner,
Not Timmons.
Timmer. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
you know what I'm talking about, the kid
I
from
know you're
Georgia.
talking about. I just can't get the think of the name. I apologize, but I can't.
Yeah, and then this was Bradley.
Okay,
Bradley, the guy, he left the company. Brad, can't remember his last name either off the top of my head. It's been so
I'm trying to
long.
get them guys to come on the show after you.
Yeah, well, Mike Daves,
I'll definitely get Mike Daniels.
yeah, get him on there, and if you can get I actually talked to most of those boys
Yeah, I
still.
talked to Mike. Mike always he talked to me not too long ago. He wants to do a
Yeah.
skill himself.
Hey, man, I'm telling you, look, don't ever be afraid of getting your hands dirty. There's a lot of money out there to be had if you're willing to go
Especially
get
in
it.
times like these, people rather get behind a computer than get their hands dirty.
And that's, if I could tell anybody anything, I'd be like, you better think twice before you waste your time.
Yep.
Hey, what's that old boy that dirty jobs, Mike
Mhm.
Rowe? He tried to tell everybody 25 years ago.
Mm.
There's a lot of money out there if you're willing to get
That's
dirty.
right.
Mhm.
Especially, I had looked up at pipes. What is it, pipeline or something like that? They was making $35 an hour on my job. I was like,
Oh yeah, well, so you know what a lineman is, right?
mm.
They work the power
Okay, yeah,
lines, the guys that go up on the
yeah.
poles. Right now, if you're a seasoned lineman, where they had all the wildfires in
Mm.
California, they're paying $105
That's
an
crazy.
hour.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Glad
So
we're in lines.
there ain't a lot of people out there making $105 an hour.
No, it ain't.
No.
They're too focused on trying to be a football or basketball player, which you're never gonna get there.
No, unfortunately not. There's a very small
Yeah,
percentage of
very
them cats.
small percentage, but then
Very small
we'll have
percentage.
our youth playing sports before we have them knowing about skills, which is pretty sad.
Well, that's the dream, though, right? Everybody has a dream, but you have to have reality
That's
mixed
right.
in.
Well,
Yeah.
after a while, after a couple of years, HVAC guys are making really good money too. Yeah, Will.
Oh yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Skilled labor. Once you
Yeah.
get past that apprentice, that foreman, all that.
Mhm.
Oh yeah. Because to be honest with you, if I was an HVAC guy in a city right now, I'd be making high six figures.
Crazy.
Mm.
I mean, I make, and I'm not. This is not bragging, but I mean, my company, we make low six figures now
Mm-hmm.
in a little bitty town.
Yep.
So if you actually wanted to like go to Atlanta and be an HVAC guy, the money you could make would be crazy.
How long has your business been up now, Will?
We're working on year number
That's what I'm
4.
saying. That's a blessing.
Yeah.
Congrats on that.
October the 18th of 21, I guess, was when we first opened the
You know
doors.
what? Just bless
Hey.
me, man. Just send me an undisclosed amount. I'm not asking for anything.
Hey, I still got a big pile of Iraqi dinar I can send you.
Oh, Will.
You know what? Well, I was able to, when that stuff happened with Uday and Kusei, my 1088, we took a lot of their belongings to the warehouse, and I got to hold their 9 mil, the 24 karat 9 mil.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The 8K they had. I got pictures of that stuff, man. It was crazy.
Dude, that was like literally one of the most frightening days of my military career.
Yeah.
I was in a soft side Humvee trying to get back to the fob, and you remember what happened when they announced that they'd been killed.
Oh yeah, everything went
Baghdad
crazy.
erupted, man.
Yep.
There was gunfire everywhere. And let me tell you something, them bullets have got to come down.
Yeah.
And we were in a soft-sided Humvee. We were in a supply Humvee. And I was like, we have got to get back to the fob, boys. We're going to get killed.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember that day vividly.
Yeah.
It was wild.
Well, you got anything closing, John?
Well, Will, man, I appreciate you for coming on the Swaggy Vet Podcast, brother, and blessing us with your story, man. And I
100%.
really appreciate your leadership and what you're doing now, man, with your business. And I wish you nothing but the best.
Gentlemen, I greatly appreciate the opportunity, and I hope you guys are wildly successful.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, sir. Well, Swaggy Vet Nation, thanks for coming out, checking us out, spending some time with us. We're going to see you on the next one. Stay swaggy, stay strong. Peace.